Hello, I'm Fiona Sitkin, a host of a talk show, The Bridge for Women Worldwide. And today I am hosting the 19th episode of The Bridge. Its title is How to Crack the Creativity Code. And How to Crack the Creativity Code is part of our series, Women Worldwide on the Rise. The guest for today's show is Kerry Bannigan, founder of Conscious Fashion Campaign. She is also co-founder and former CEO of Nolcha. Kerry comes from New York, New York. Originally, she is from UK. Let me say a few words about myself and our show. A professional educator, consultant, and former Fulbright scholar. I started the show rooting in my Huffington Post blogs, as well as a recent book, How They Made It in America, Success Stories and Strategies of Immigrant Women. And today, I have a distinct honor to present Kerry Bannigan, who may be the subject of my next book. Welcome to the show, Kerry. How are you?
Thank you so much. Hello, Fiona. And it's my pleasure to come to this talk show about prominent women. I love this idea of what you're doing.
Thank you so much. And I'm happy to see you too. You have been intriguing me ever since I first interviewed you for the Huffington Post, really. So let me introduce you properly here at the Bridge. Ladies and gentlemen, Kerry Bannigan is a prominent entrepreneur pioneering global partnerships for sustainable development. Kerry Bannigan is a founder of Conscious Fashion Campaign, which is an initiative in collaboration with the United Nations Office for Partnerships. Their partnership altogether have 4.7 billion in revenue and 800 shows in 40 countries worldwide. Yes, that's great, right? Interestingly, Kerry started her career after immigrating to the United States. She worked as a marketing assistant, lived in a tiny New York apartment, but she dreamed big and she loved high fashion, in French, haute couture. On spotting that not everything is perfect in our fashion world establishment, Kerry co-founded the Nolcha Shows. Why? To give an opportunity for young and independent designers who had great ideas but no money to participate in the runways in New York, to show their wares and be accepted and known by the public. In fact, Kerry was mending a hole in equal opportunity in the fashion world, which is a big deal. Later, Kerry, with her cascading creativity, spotted other opportunities, other niches for services with a diverse clientele. She embraced entrepreneurship and philanthropy. Welcome to our show, Kerry.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction, Fiona.
You are very welcome. My first question to you is as follows. When you first come to New York and to the United States, what made you so ambitious in the first place? How did it all start, I'm wondering?
For me, I started visiting New York when I was 16 years old. I was coming for my summers. When I eventually moved there at 21 years old, I remember just beginning to feel I belonged. Even though I was born and raised in the UK and I'm a huge fan of the UK, I just felt, even when I landed on the tarmac as a teenager in New York, that I'd finally found home. And it also felt like it was a place that gave me permission to finally do something that I really want to do. Find myself, break out against the boundaries that are expected of you in societal pressures, especially as a woman.
Right.
And even though I had got my university education behind me, and because that was expected, I wanted more. And from a very young age, I knew I wanted to have my own business. And I felt like New York just feeds the ambition to drive you and it ignites you. And it definitely ignited me.
Splendid, splendid. I love how you put it. Now that your consultancy business is up and running, Kerry, could you elaborate on its goals as well as your vision for the future, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So currently, a lot of my work sits in where I actually advocate and help companies with public-private partnerships for sustainable development. I champion and leverage the fashion, media, and retail worlds because I'm a big believer that creativity is what is needed to drive good forward. They're extremely powerful sectors. So my work really varies on day to day who I may work with, but it is all about leveraging creativity for changing and creating positive steps forward in our world. Everything I do is very B2B focused versus consumer driven. And it's all about how can we take what's going on in the sector and stop any negative output and instead make a better place for people and planet.
Thank you. Thank you so much for explaining that. Well, Kerry, I know that you are a founding member of SDG Media Zone. Now, in your own words, what is its real impact on sustainable development, please?
Yeah, so the SDG Media Zone, I run this in partnership with the Public Foundation and the United Nations Department of Global Communications. And the whole point of that is to be able to bring the messaging around actions and solutions to the Sustainable Development Goals to global citizens. For those that are not aware of the Sustainable Development Goals, they are 17 goals that have been created that in 2015, they were adopted by the United Nations member states as a way for us to have a blueprint for a better planet. The goal is by 2030 to really look at the Sustainable Development Goals that look at gender equality, climate change, life on land, better education, eradicating poverty and zero hunger. And through the work of the SDG Media Zone, we bring together content creators and media to share the messages from world leaders to advocates through to youth that are just doing great things in the world. And what we've seen with the impact of that, we launched this project in 2016. Today, it is one of the flagship initiatives that takes place during the UN General Assembly every September. And since 2016, we have co-produced 18 SDG media zones across 7 countries and engaged millions of people on social media where they follow along through the hashtag SDG Live. They share their input, questions they might have for the leaders about how are we going to do better? How do we collaborate? And what can we do to ensure nobody is left behind?
Yeah, it's very, very important, I understand. Thank you for explaining that. Kerry, you are now accumulating, and you already have accumulated a lot of skills in event managing, marketing, and business development. Over the years, what was your most favorite project or organization to work with?
Oh, that's a hard one because so many people that I'm working with are truly doing incredible things. And with it being tied to creativity, no project's ever the same. Everything you see is so different. But I will say I'm leading a project right now called the Conscious Fashion Campaign, and that's in partnership with the United Nations Office for Partnerships. And with that, what we are doing is bridging the gap between the Sustainable Development Goals and the fashion sector. And one of our pioneering partners is Messe Frankfurt. And Messe Frankfurt is one of the largest trade show and fashion event organizers across Europe. And what is absolutely incredible is the way that they have embraced new ways to do business, to drive sustainability in the fashion space, even though they're a 700-year plus old company. So they smashed through their usual barriers to realize that the way the fashion industry is working today is failing us. We are failing the workers, we're failing the consumers, and we're definitely failing the planet. And so Messe Frankfurt has a very special place in my heart because they're putting risks out there and they're going beyond what they would usually do, and they're making impact a part of their DNA of their business. And that's not easy, especially when you're already successful and doing great things. In a way, they might not even have to embrace sustainability right now. And it's incredible to see them as a pioneer do it and lay the path for the sector to follow, because it's extremely powerful. Just to kind of put in numbers what they represent for the fashion sector in terms of events, just with one part of their business, they hold 52 fashion and textile trade shows a year that welcome 500,000 fashion executives and businesses to attend, and it's very impactful. So seeing them wave the flag for sustainability is one of my favorite projects, and we still are doing so much together.
Thank you so much. This is really great things that they are doing, indeed. Well, you are very young and you're already a role model for many. How about yourself? Did you have a role model of your own, I'm wondering?
So mine goes between two sides. There's my role models on the female side that were actually extremely close to home with my mom and my grandmother, where my mom was a fantastic and still is a homemaker, so proud to raise me and my two siblings, but always reminded me to how to handle your finances, be confident, be independent, make sure that you build on yourself and speak up. It doesn't matter who you are in a room with, make sure you are always heard. And that stuck with me all the way through life and became very important information for me when I got to New York at 21 years old by myself, thinking, now what do I do? And learning to speak up is something that I still say to females every day. Make sure you speak up, even if your voice is shaking, because once you start, you don't stop, and you should be heard. And I think women especially are terrible for not speaking up, even though we have an idea. And somebody else in the room, generally an older male, will then say what you were already thinking. And just from learning that, I always remember my mom just like, don't be quiet, keep going, speak. And that stuck with me. My grandma, who is no longer with us today, was very impactful on my life with how she would sew and draw fashion models and, period pieces as sketches. And I grew up with her making costumes, whether it be for the holidays or for fancy dress or for occasions. And for me, always seeing her with her sewing machine. And then I spent my childhood going from charity shop and thrifting and vintage finding and secondhand shops. And that over time has played such an impact on my career when I didn't even realize. It was so nurtured into me, and it's really been impressive with my decisions over time. In regards to if there was a female in the limelight that was ever a role model to me when I was younger, not really. And I think that speaks to how bad it is that there wasn't women at the forefront of business in the way that men were. And so for me growing up, I was always enamored by Richard Branson. I would read his stories about how he left school, he was dyslexic, he had his challenges, but I was always enamored by his grit. And how he would just keep trying. And I think role models today change as you go through your life. And to me, it's everyday heroes. As we sit in this pandemic, it's the doctors, the nurses, the essential workers, the delivery guys. And I think that this is our time in life to actually pay attention to the unsung heroes, because they should be our role models and the tenacity that they have to keep going right now.
Thank you so much for putting it this way. I can sign on everything you've said. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Now, you now I understand in UK, in Britain, speaking from Britain because you are stuck there before the pandemic, but you intend to come back to the city, to New York City, as soon as you can. Now, what is attracting you in the New York City culture and US American culture in general?
So for me, as I said, it was love at first sight when I got to New York. And my father lives in New York. And so what is amazing there is all the memories that we have grown with me, my father, and my stepmom. And that's been beautiful. And that will always attract me to come back because it's so special. For me, initially with New York, it was coming from a small town in England with, as well as the very British expectations of a female that I had mentioned. And in New York, it's like you could build anything and they let you be anybody. And if you've got the hustle and the belief, people there cheering you on. And I think it's incredible. And for me now, I still, anything I see in New York, something lights up inside of me and it ignites a fire for you to drive and deliver. And also for me, coming from a very small town, I love in New York the constant cultures that you interact with and the learnings that you can take from people from every region around the world, whether it's their music, their food, their clothing, their stories. I love when people will tell you about their grandparents or their parents, and everyone just comes together and it's a true melting pot. And to me, New York City is the best place in the world. It has given me incredible opportunities, but it was never on a plate. You have to get to New York with hustle and to be ready to work, but it will give you a gift that no other place in the world can.
Thank you so much. I hear you really. That's why I fell in love with New York too. I live in New York metropolitan area in New Jersey, 1 hour from New York, and I feel the influence all the way, of course. Now, talking of personal preferences, if you were given the opportunity to have a lunch with anybody in the world, a celebrity or rank and file person, who would that be, I'm wondering?
So I'm not into the traditional celebrities. I think coming from the fashion world, I realize how facade and mask it can be. For me right now, as I sit, where are we, 8, 9 months into the pandemic, and I'm back home in the UK, as you mentioned. I couldn't get back to New York, and I've been in New York for 17 years. But being in the UK and watching what's gone on and to see what I thought may have changed when I left 17 years ago and hasn't, I would love to have lunch with Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, and speak to him about what his plans are for COVID recovery for the fashion sector, because England is known for incredible creatives and beautiful fashions, as is Europe. But I want to know, especially as you look at Brexit, what's going to happen here? What are the opportunities to leverage the fashion designers and to look at the independent, incredible talent that comes out of this country and how it can still remain on a respected global scale? That would be my lunch.
Thank you. Well, I hope Boris Johnson watches our show, huh? Well, you have a way of putting things nicely, and I always loved one of your quotes that you wrote in a questionnaire you filled out for me long ago. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Could you read it and elaborate on that, please?
I had said, I see my American journey as a blessing. And I do, honestly. And so I say it as a blessing. It comes with a lot of hurdles, a lot of obstacles. It's not easy. It taught me so much about the world. It taught me about people. And more than anything, my whole experience with America taught me about who I am. And I mentioned about my father living in America with my stepmom. And for me, it's been such a pivotal moment of my life to be able to spend so much of my adulthood with them in America, from simple things of sitting on the porch and watching cars go by, to then being in bars in New York City and the whole hustle, to then being in restaurants and to traveling America. And America literally has made me. I have today a 4-year-old toddler or 4-year-old boy, and he was born in America, and I feel so
Uh-huh.
blessed to be able to
Yes.
give that to him too. And because I could have had him in the UK, and I chose for him to be born in America. And I cannot wait as he grows up for him to see the opportunities, no matter what we are facing right now, post-election, as things go on. America, to me, is all about possibilities. And I come from a place where there is very few possibilities for women, and in this little town. And yeah, America to me is possibilities. And for that, it was a blessing, and I will forever be grateful.
Thank you so much. So you have your own Prince Harry.
Yes.
Now, let us talk about your backbone values, the backbone of your success. I'm wondering what they are, because you're a big achiever pursuing the noble goals of sustainability, of global sustainability. In my recent book, I wrote about 7 success values that helped women advance their success. I am wondering if you could relate to one of these or name your own and explain to us what are your success values, please.
For me, definitely inclusive leadership. I think that I would not be where I am if people had not brought me in to have a seat at the table. I mean, I've knocked doors down and sometimes even just brought my own chair, and at other occasions, even just brought my own table. But when I've done that, I've always made sure to bring people with me in all levels of my work, whether is it the team, whether it's empowering clients, whether it's also just giving opportunities. And I think without inclusive leadership, we cannot grow as a community, a nation, even globally, it doesn't work. And inclusive leadership for me, it is not just about the diversity that we need to look at among cultural, racial, and so forth. Gender to me is crucial. If we cannot have more women in these places of leadership, we are not going to see the change that we need to see happen.
Right.
For me also, I would also say crucial on my success personally in my work has been communication skills and creativity.
Right.
Communication is so important in our personal lives and professionally. But professionally, if we cannot learn to communicate, it's always going to be an obstacle. And nobody wants to work like that. We want to drive forward, we want to be able to advance, and we want to be able to accelerate. And communication helps you do that, from internally with your team through to externally with clients, partners, and so forth. And creativity is just the underlining of all my work. Whether I get creative to come up with certain projects or to see a niche in what we need to do. But for me, I believe as well, the creative sectors are going to change and save the world. So that is at the arc of everything I do.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for letting us know what made it you, because our values are making us what we are. And I'm grateful to you on behalf of my audience as well, because listening to you gave us some ideas of how to stay creative no matter what, how to stay high principle no matter what. And most of all, I am grateful for you, Kerry, to being you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Now let us wind up. And I would like to point out that there are three takeaways that I recommend to our audience. Number one is that Kerry Bannigan is the creative social entrepreneur and role model. Number two is to crack the creativity code, we need to try to be more like Kerry, unafraid to step into the uncharted territory and apply our skills to new areas. And the last but not the least, you may order the book, How They Made It in America, to learn more about how to be a success in the US. Let's connect now. This is our last slide. You can ask me questions on YouTube channel or write to me directly via email, fiona.sitkin@gmail.com, or connect with me via my book website, www.fionasitkin.com. I thank you so much for watching The Bridge for Women Worldwide, and please subscribe to our channel. We love you, we need you, and I salute you. Again, thank you so much. And at the end, I would like to say that both Kerry and myself wish you all the best, wish you to stay well and healthy. Bye-bye for now.